Thank you all for being here. It's indeed a very big honor to be sitting across such a legend. And I'm not here as much as a professional in my professional capacity as I'm here as a Fauji kid. Both of my grandparents, my father, we've all been one big army family. So it gives me great pleasure to be here as a person from that capacity. And as a person who's finished reading the book, I have to say, sir, big compliments to you. I felt at so many different points just transported back to my childhood, seeing some of the things that you've gone through. And I'm sure if your sons wrote a book, we would have a lot to talk about. But before I get into that, it's been killing me. I have to know, what is the story of the marigold on your lapel, sir?
This flower is a marigold. Now, today is the 13th of November. The 11th of November is Remembrance Day. Remembering all those who have fallen in World War I and World War II. Now, on that day, everyone wears the poppy all over the world because that is the Commonwealth flower of remembrance for the war dead of the Commonwealth. But India has fought 5 wars since independence. And our flower is not the poppy. Our flower is the marigold. And my request to all of you, my appeal to all of you is, please support me in my campaign to make the marigold the flower of remembrance for India's war dead.
Hear, hear.
On the 11th of November, in Westminster Abbey, the grave of the unknown soldier lies on the floor of Westminster Abbey, and nobody can walk across that floor. You can walk across the graves of queens and kings, but not the unknown soldier. In Westminster, in America, USA, in Washington, there is a tomb of the unknown soldier. And in Australia, in Canberra, at 11 minutes past 11 o'clock, on the 11th of November, in the 11th month of the year, the sun shines on the statue of the unknown soldier. So that the whole world is remembering the unknown soldier. What about India? We have lost over 60,000 people who have died in these wars. Do not they require to be remembered? They do. So, we need to have a statue of the unknown soldier. There was a canopy next to India Gate, between India Gate and the National War Memorial, which housed the statue of King George V, which was removed. And I wanted the unknown soldier to be there. But the government has put somebody else. That's okay. We need to have another place to honor the unknown soldier. Who is the unknown soldier? People who have died, done great things, but nobody was there to witness them and write a citation. We have only 21 Paramveer Chakras in the country because somebody saw what they did and wrote a citation. If you don't have a citation, you don't get an award. But there are thousands of people who have done great things for this country, but they're not remembered. So that is the story of the marigold.
Very touching indeed. Can I request you to hold your mic closer? I think some people at the back aren't being able to hear you. Is this better?
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Sorry.
Speaking of, I want to start here with your journey. You are Goan, and your family made Mumbai home very early in the day. So I think it would be safe to say that you're a hardcore Mumbaikar. Would that be correct? I'm going to take that as a yes.
I'm a hardcore Goan. I'm a hardcore Goan and a hardcore Mumbaikar as well.
Great.
Because my roots are in Goa. The roots of my wife's family is in Goa. Goa means a lot to us. And I lived my early life in Bombay.
Right.
So what I am today is because of Bombay, St. Xavier's School, St. Xavier's College. You'll be surprised to know that the values that I learnt in St. Xavier's School are the values which helped me in the army, in battle, because it taught me to do what is right, irrespective of the consequences, to put a premium on honor, to be respectful to others, including your subordinates, and so many other messages. And therefore, I owe a lot to my school and to my college, both St. Xavier's School and St. Xavier's College. So I'm a Xavierite.
I can see there are a lot of Xavierites in the audience.
And my wife here, Priscilla Cardozo, is also a Xavierite because
Big shout out.
she did a B.Ed in the St. Xavier's Institute of Education. And sitting in the audience today is my best friend, also a Xavierite, Julia Chagas Pereira. Batch of 1953. We have journeyed to life together, and he's here today with his wife, Jean. And I thank them for being here. Goans, every year, when I was small, used to go in the month of April and May to Goa. And we lived close to the sea. I think I may be taking too much time.
That's okay. Go for it.
But
The floor is yours.
Goa and Bombay mean a lot to me. They are what has made me what I am today. And I love to relive those memories because they give me a lot of satisfaction.
Speaking of which,
But it's all there in the book.
yeah, there is an entire chapter dedicated about Sir's, summer holidays when he's a child with his family in their ancestral home. It's a lot of fun. I don't know what that Goa looks like. I can just imagine it.
And I
But
cannot,
it sounds beautiful.
excuse me, but I cannot forget my parents because the values that I learnt at home are the values that stood me throughout life. And you will see in that book, whenever I had a tough time, I used to think, I wonder what my parents would have told me, how they would guide me to do. But at one time, you reach a stage when you're on your own. So my parents gave me the values. These were strengthened and emboldened by my school, my college, the NDA, and the army. All have great value systems, all have great values, and the message in this, there are 14 chapters in this book, and every chapter has a message, including my early life, including St. Xavier's School, including my family, and I think that applies to each and every one of us. And the story of this book is not the story of Ian Cardozo. It is a story of every army officer. It's the story of the Indian Army. And the aim of writing this book is to bring the armed forces closer to all of you, because you all know so little about the army. Whatever you know is about Bollywood, which is not the reality, but that is what life is all about. That's it.
So that's interesting because what I find fascinating is that since you so closely identify to the city as well as to Goa, when you get commissioned into the Gorkha Rifles, which predominantly identifies close to the Nepalese culture. So my question actually is, and sorry, I'm just going to quickly set context for the audience. A regiment in the army is much like a company. It has its own history, its own awards and recognitions. It has its own institutional memory. And so it is very rooted in regional identity, or any identity for that matter. So as a Bombay boy, for you, how difficult or easy was it to actually ingrain yourself into a whole new culture? You talk about learning the language, going to the homes of different men who are living there. How easy or difficult was that for you in your early years?
See, the Gurkhas, as most of you may know, are the bravest soldiers in the world. They are very gentle with old people, with animals, with children, but in war, without the blink of an eyelid, they'll cut off the enemy's head. And we did that. I'll tell you about it a little later. But they are the finest specimens of humanity. These simple men from the hills of Nepal taught me all that I needed to know about my profession, about being truthful, about honor. So when I went to the academy, these were my instructors. There were some instructors of every state of India. But the ones who impressed me the most were the Gurkhas. And so without blowing my own trumpet, I passed out pretty high in the order of merit. And the first 20 get the choice of the regiment you wish to join. And I was given the choice of my battalion. I chose the 1st Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles Frontier Force. In World War I and II, we have 21 Victoria Crosses, of which 4 are from my battalion. And my battalion in 1924 was declared to be the best battalion in the Indian Empire. And recently, the battalion was the best battalion in the division. It's got what is known as unit citation, which is like a battle honor in peacetime. And it's got 3 of them in operational areas. And that is a very rare thing. So when I asked for leave after my first 1 year in the battalion, they said, your leave is sanctioned. Where do you want to go? So I said, I want to go to Bombay. They said, leave is sanctioned. You're not going to Bombay, you're going to Nepal. So I said, yes. How do I do that? He said, here's a boy who's going on leave. He'll take you to his home. You'll stay there for 3 days, and he'll hand you over to another battalion, another family, and another family. And that's how 2 months of my leave passed in Nepal. I met the boy's father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, and the grandfather and the father told me stories about the battalion in World War I, World War II, Northwest Frontier. I learned about the history of the battalion from these simple people. They taught me the language. I learned Nepali. Nepali to a Gurkha is what Hindi is to a Madrasi. It's a link language. I learned Gurung Khura, which is a dialect. I learned the songs. I learned the dances. I learned the trouble that they had, difficult times that they had to pass through. There was no water in those areas. And it was a great learning. And when I came back after 2 months, after being at the homes of all my men, we got bonded together. And that bonding took me through 3 wars. I would give my life for my men, and my men would give their lives for me. And that is what happened. That is exactly what happened in the 3 wars. And another custom we have in my battalion is, when a man dies in battle, everyone from the CO downwards gives a day's salary for the wife or the widow of the boy who has been killed. And that money is given to a person who stays closest to that family and to tide over the period before the pension starts. So this boy was a 3rd generation soldier. We have up to 5 generations in the battalion. He was a 3rd generation soldier. He was killed in Sri Lanka. And the JCO was going up to the village, and they asked him, where are you going? So he said, I'm going to visit so-and-so Jag Bahadur's house, Havaldar Jag Bahadur's house. So they said, but how did you come to know? So he said, come to know what? Jag Bahadur has died 11 days ago. And this JCO, who was taking the money, realized that 11 days earlier, she had lost her son. So at the same time, father and son had passed away. Now he had the difficult task of telling this lady that I'm sorry to learn that you lost your husband, but you've also lost your son. And he met her, and she said, Subhadra Saab, how have you come? You are in Sri Lanka, aren't you? How did you know that my husband has passed away? So he said, sorry, Mataji, I did not know, we did not know. But I'm sorry to tell you, you've also lost your son. So she sat down. Kurka women don't shout and cry. Tears rolled down her cheeks. And she said, only one question. How did he die? Did he die a good soldier's death? Did he die with honor? Did he bring honor to the battalion? And the JCU replied, yes. Now this family had only two sons. The one who died in Sri Lanka and one more. The boy, eldest boy, joined the family to keep the family line intact with the battalion and the family. And the second boy was kept back behind to look after the mother and the property. But now, while they were talking, the second boy comes, they cook on wood fire. So he had gone to the jungle to get wood, and he saw the chief. He said, Saab, what news do you bring of my brother? So he said, she told him, go and make him a cup of tea, I'll tell you. He comes back, and she says, Nar Bahadur, Saab has brought sad news. Your brother Nir Bahadur is no more. And then she tells the JCO, it is not right that the link between my family and the battalion, it must not break. Take this boy with you. So he says, Mataji, who will look after you? She said, don't worry, God will look after me. You go. And that is the spirit of the Gurkhas, the spirit of the women of the Indian Army. The women of the Indian Army are the backbone of all of us. We cannot do what we do. We cannot do what we do without their support. And this woman sitting in front of me, my wife, has been my support all these years. She has been mother and father to my children because I was always in operational areas. She has stood by me through thick and thin. And now in the evening of my life, I am obsessed with writing. And she allows me to do that. So do understand that the strength of the army is in its women.
Very well said.
Is that...
So true. In fact, when, I know this again as a kid on the other side, when my father would be posted to field areas for long absences. I know my mother was both my mother, father, school teacher, chauffeur, just sportsman, everything for me. But speaking of the backbone, I actually have a question for Mrs. Cardozo. She would oblige us. And it's an interesting one. Can someone give her I can give her mine. Should I give mine? Yeah, okay, so I can give mine. If you could go back in time, what is one piece of advice you would want to share with General Cardozo here?
There's lots of things she can say. I'm very worried.
She may say, go back to the army.
Yeah, no. He's very serious. He doesn't smile, he doesn't laugh. And the grandchildren call him Grumpy Grandpa. So I wish that would change.
Do you want to take that?
No, she's right.
So, throughout the book, and again, being on the other side, I know that it's a well-known fact that in the army, orders can't be questioned. Hierarchy is sacrosanct, and sometimes the outcome of defying that question could be career damaging. You, however, in your book talk a lot about several instances where you did not just question but also sort of go against some of the orders that were issued to you. Is there a specific instance that sort of stands out for you? And how did you sort of maneuver the hierarchy in any of those without losing your own stand or compromising on your own stand and not upsetting your seniors? Because clearly you managed to make the rank of Major General without any issues.
I think you should ask this question of Priscilla. Priscilla, answer this question. The question is,
how did General Cardozo sort of maneuver authority, survive whilst really sometimes, and he mentions instances in the book where he questions his seniors, he's counter-questioning, but he still goes ahead to do stuff that he wants to do without following orders, but he still makes it to a Major General. So how has that happened?
All I know is that whenever he got promoted, everyone would ask, how did he get promoted with this behavior?
I think the secret sauce is you, Mrs. Cardozo.
Yeah. I'd like to sort of add to what, hello, can you hear me? To what she has said. And again, this takes me back to my mother, to my school, to my college, and to the NDA. And the principle is, do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. And I have, in the army, you are allowed to question your superiors up to a point. After that, orders are orders, and you have to do what you are told. I don't know whether I can share with you some of the issues which I had with my superiors, but give you a very simple example of, I used to go early to office because Priscilla and the boys used to go to school. And I was in my office and I get out into the corridor, and there used to be a colonel walking up and down the corridor, and I said, good morning, sir. He looked at me and said, didn't look at me, he just ignored me. Second day, I said, maybe he didn't register, so I said, good morning, sir. He ignored me. The third day, I refused to wish him. So he said, come here. I said, yes. He said, why don't you wish me? I said, because you don't wish me back. So he said, I'll take you to your superiors. I said, you can take me wherever you like, sir. I will not wish you again. So I was reported to my seniors. My boss called me. He was standing there, and he said, is this true? I said, yes, sir, it is true. But hear my part of the story. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. If a superior doesn't answer my salute, I will not salute him. And there's another amusing thing about Sam Manekshaw. Sam Manekshaw was walking one day, and he saw a soldier saluting a second lieutenant. Again and again, again and again. So he said, what's the matter? He said, sir, this Jawan did not salute me. He said, son, each time he salutes you, you got to salute him back. So each time he salutes, you salute him back. So there are instances in the Indian Army which have produced outstanding results by people who have questioned authority and done what is right irrespective of the consequences. You need to read my book. I'm not advertising, but there is a book I wrote last year, 1971, Stories of Grit and Glory. And that there is a story of a colonel who captured an objective despite the orders given by his superiors. And he did his job for the country. When I was commanding a division, I was told you cannot use heavy equipment like mortars and MMGs, etc., or RCLs, without permission from the Corps. Now, by the time you go to the Corps, from division to Corps and the staff and the command, it's too late. So I told my battalions, I delegate this power to you, but don't let me down. If you have to use these mortars or RCL guns, recoilless guns, please make sure that you have a very good reason to do so. And I was in a chopper flying over the line of control. Now, the line of control is not marked on the ground, so, it could stray. So the enemy opened up on me. So the battalion commander ordered the RCO to fire, blew up a bunker, 5 Pakistani Jawans were killed. So there was a big inquiry. And I was asked, why did you disobey orders? Why did you allow this to happen? I said, sir, because this is an incorrect order. Because if I ask for your permission, it will be too late. I survived. And the other instances I don't want to talk about because
You have to read the book for that.
but the advice, the message in the book as far as disobeying orders are concerned, there is a story. We had a corps commander called General Sagat Singh. He's the finest field commander and strategist the Indian Army has ever produced. Now, when the country needs to have a vision, do we have a vision? That vision means where will India be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? And in a short term, in 1971, the vision of the government of India was only to capture that amount of territory in East Pakistan so that the 10 million refugees could go back. But Sagat Singh and others decided to disobey orders and they went for Dhaka. And when Dhaka fell, East Pakistan fell. They took the right decision, but he disobeyed orders. And his army commander, his boss told him, why are you crossing the Meghna River? The government has not said that you can cross the Meghna. He said, they were course-mates. Jaggi, I am crossing the Meghna River. I am a corps commander. I have to achieve my objectives. I'm giving you a crossing of the Meghna. You should be happy. He disobeyed orders. So the point is this. If you get your priorities right, if you get, and the priorities for us is country first, soldiers next, sorry, people of India next, soldiers next, the regiment next. Life is wonderful in the Indian Army. There's nothing comparable. But you have to, risk-taking is part of our decision-making. And sometimes you disobey orders to do what is right. That's what I think.
It's a big gamble, but sometimes it pays off. I think that's what I'm hearing from you. Speaking of wars, you've been through 3. You've been through the India-China in 62, India-Pakistan in 65, and then again in 71. And you've been on the front lines on each of these wars. You've fought the enemy at very close range. What would you say is your one biggest learning from being on the front line?
There isn't one biggest learning. There are many learnings. Firstly, what's happening today? There's a war on. Where is that war taking place? Where is that war taking place? In Ukraine. Okay. Whether it is World War I, World War II, war in Ukraine, 47, 48, 62, 65, 71, 99, all wars, there's only one cause. And that cause is greed. Greed for power and greed for money. There are no other reasons. Even if a religious war is concerned, and more people have died on the name of religion than anything else. But there too it is power. So wars, the causes of all wars is greed. So unless the politicians get it right, I mean, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, it's greed. Greed for power. NATO and the USA have disregarded all the promises they made to Russia. The Warsaw Pact collapsed. It's a long story. But the point is this. Wars are caused by politicians, compounded by bureaucrats, and fought by soldiers. So it is the soldiers who have to pay for the mistakes of the politicians and the bureaucrats. And that is why it is important that you, each one of you, as a citizen of this country, you have a role to play. You have a duty. But you cannot play that role or carry out that duty if you do not know anything about the army, anything about defense. So you need to know more about what is happening, why it is happening, how it is happening, because the government has given the armed forces a shut-up call. So who's going to speak for the country? What is happening today on Agnipath and Agniveer is the most, I don't want to say, most horrendous decision taken by the government. We are going to be in a war with China and Pakistan, a two-front war. And we are going to be alone. The USA won't support us. They didn't support us in 65. In 71, they sent the 7th Fleet to the Bay of Bengal. The Brits sent a squadron of destroyers to the Arabian Sea. The Brits won't help us. USA won't help us. France and Belgium and Spain and all these countries, they kept quiet. Today, they are criticizing India for not condemning Russia. Where were they when we fought all these wars? Did they say anything? Nothing. So the point is, who will support us? In my mind, the only country which may support us is Israel. Otherwise, we're going to be on our own. And if we are on our own, China is much bigger than us. They're superior to us in technology. Unless we catch up with them, unless we have the guts to stand up to them and defeat them. Now, China was defeated by Vietnam. Vietnam defeated the French, defeated the Americans, and defeated China. And the Vietnamese told India, you inspired us. So we said, how? He said, Shivaji Maharaj. Shivaji taught us guerrilla tactics. The only way to fight a superior enemy is through guerrilla warfare. So we have got to understand what the next war is going to be all about. We have got to prepare for that war or perish. And who is going to speak for us? You. You are the only ones who can speak and make the government understand, because you have the vote. They are scared of you. They want your vote. And you have to tell them what is right and what is wrong. So, have I answered your question?
Very much. Very well answered, sir. Absolutely. So now I want to bring your views on this slight...
I forgot. I want to say something else.
Of course,
about
of course.
war.
By all means.
Yeah. What war has taught me is that life is very precious. No one can understand the value of life unless he has lived in the shadow of death. And when we go to war, or anti-terrorist or anti-insurgency operations, we are living in the shadow of death. And when we come out of it alive, we understand the value of life. We should be grateful to God that He has given us this gift of life, and we need to live it to the full. Life is an adventure, or it is nothing. As Abraham Lincoln said, it is not the years in your life that count, it is the life in your years. So, what the war teaches a soldier is that life is very precious. There is no time to be stupid. There is no time for hate. There is no time for anger. There is only time for love. Now, you might say, what does this soldier know about love? Well, it is on the altar of love that men and women in uniform put their lives in the line of fire and disappear in the smoke and fire of battle. It is the soldier, love to him is love for his country, love for the people of India, love for his soldiers, love for the regiment, and love for a type of life that has no equal. So this is what war means to a soldier. War is not a nice thing. I've lost lots of friends. They've died in my arms at 65. I saw a lot of action in 1965. Lost a lot of friends, people who grew up with me. So war is not pleasant. You get a wrong idea when you look at Bollywood, when you look at comics. War is a life of sacrifice, great sacrifice. And we need to know that if we get our priorities right, we will never lose a war. We can win a war provided we are prepared. And we need to prepare for the war against China plus Pakistan, and it will happen. Be quite clear about it. China will attack us. In 1962, we thought they would never attack us. Today, there are people who will say they will attack, and we have to be ready for that day. If we are prepared, yes, they will think twice. But we need to prepare. And you are the voice to tell the government that we need to prepare.
Very well put, sir. Speaking of sacrifice, as I'm reading your book, I realized that your life completely changes post the 71 war, where you are declared a battle casualty. And we know, I think, from experience as well, that the army places a lot of importance on physical fitness. In the book, you mention some of the changes that you're going through personally from an identity point of view. There are certain restrictions placed on your employment. And there are great moments of vulnerability. And I just want to take a quick few minutes to read out, and then I will pose my question to you. This is in the chapter Aftermath of the War. And this is what you write when you're in the hospital recovering. You say, I felt as if we who had fought for the flag and been part of that great victory of 1971 were now left behind. India and the army were moving forward without us. Had the Indian army forgotten us? Did we not belong anymore? We who did not count the cost. Was I being punished for being wounded in battle? Were we the battle casualties, winners or losers? So to me, I'm trying to understand, how did you soldier on from this point, and how did you build your story of being a specially abled officer?
There was a person who lived in our time and space. His name was Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. Have you heard of him? Yes. I am from Sam's regiment. And when I got my Sena medal, I asked him for advice. And he said, do what you love. Love what you do. Never be afraid and never give up. I tried to absorb the messages of what he told me. Priscilla, have you got your bag with you? I want that marigold. I've written a poem about what she just said in the book. I'd like to read it to you. I hope I can read it. Or will you read it?
Yeah, sure.
I think I'll read it. No. Is that? I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared. I wrote a poem on this in my hospital bed. And I won't repeat what she has said, but I'll read the poem. When the war is over, when all is said and done when the world does not remember how the war was won. The dead, they've all been buried. They've crossed the distant shore. But the disabled, they are all troubled because they are not the same no more. We fought with great commitment for a just and worthy cause. We raced towards a victory with not a single pause. 10 million were uprooted, a population torn. We liberated a great people. A new country then was born, that was Bangladesh. But those of us disabled, some blind, some deaf, some lame, are told, your useful days are over. You are not the same. They say that we are not needed. We are not good enough to serve. Our fighting days are over. Our future now is blurred. Will the army now forget us? Has the countdown now begun to send us to oblivion now that the war is won? However, please consider when the future war takes place, the soldier will recall were the disabled provided for with grace. So, we were told, you can't come back. You can't come back to your troops. And the Gurkhas were my life. I joined the army not to be chained to a desk. I joined the army to command troops. And how could that life of adventure be if you are doing a staff job for the rest of your life? And so I decided I'd fight the system. How I would do that, what would I do, I had no idea. But one thing was clear, I will get back to my Gurkha troops, whatever happens. And I got myself fit. I ran 6 to 7 kilometers a day for 2 years, so much so that the metal bolt which fastened my foot, my artificial foot to the artificial leg, sheared off and broke. I climbed, I swam, I ran, I marched. And when the test came, I did not know how and when it would happen, but the test did come. I managed to prove to the army that I was as good as anybody else, or better than them. And one of the tests was a 2-mile run, and in that 2-mile run, I left 7 officers with 2 legs behind me.
Very commendable.
And I climbed a mountain about 2,800 feet, and the vice chief was there, and he said, how have you come here? He thought, being NDA, I had my friends in the Air Force would give me a chopper, and I've come. How did you come here? So I was a little taken aback. I did not understand what he was saying. I said, I climbed, sir. He said, you can climb? I said, sir, what I cannot do lies in the minds of my senior officers. So he thought that was an impertinent answer. And he said, what do you mean? I said, sir, the army has not given me the opportunity to prove what we can do, what the disabled can do. And then he thought about it. He went back to army headquarters. He went to the chief. The chief had lost an eye in battle in World War II. If the rules were applied to him, he would never have become the chief. So when he told the chief, this boy, he can run, he can march, he can climb, he can swim. What's the problem? Why can't we give him a battalion? He said, I'm going to Ladakh, send him with me. So I went with him to Ladakh, and I marched and climbed and did whatever. He called for my file when we came back, and he said, yes, give him a battalion and other war-disabled officers who are not taking shelter of their wounds. This was a battle I fought for 7 years, and it paid off. How did it pay off? I did what I thought was right, and there's a God above. The message is, you do your best, and God will do the rest. So I got a battalion. I commanded my battalion in an operational area. And one day, we were moving from Trivandrum to J&K, and we had gone to Kovalam for a picnic. And I'm a good swimmer. My family, including Priscilla, all of us swim. And I taught about 300 to 400 kids how to swim. One of them was a 12-year-old boy. And it was the month of June. The sea was rough. And a big wave came and took this 12-year-old boy into the sea. And he was shouting for help. Nobody had the guts to go into that sea and help him. I was without a leg. I took off my leg, got 2 officers because you can't hop in sand or in chikkat. So they launched me into the sea. By this time, he had gone about 800 meters into the sea. And I swam up to him. He was saying, "Uncle, save me." I said, "Son, don't touch me. If you do, both of us will go down. You see those rocks there? We'll head for those rocks, and you can climb up and be saved. If we don't reach those rocks, don't worry. Somebody will send a boat and get us back." But there was no boat. So I prayed, "God, please help me to save this boy and myself." With 2 hands that I had, I was supporting his face. I didn't want the waves to go over his face. He choked and pulled me down. I had only 1 leg to kick. It was very difficult, but we managed to reach those rocks. He climbed on top, but I couldn't because I had only 1 leg. And I had to swim back against the tide. It took me 45 minutes. There was a huge crowd watching this whole drama. And then I couldn't come out without help because I had to be helped. I had only 1 leg. And they were aghast that this guy with 1 leg saved this boy. And there were a number of reporters who wanted to write a story. I said, "There's no story to tell." But the point is this, that as long as you do what is right, there's somebody above there who's looking after you. So do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. Have I answered it?
Cartoos Saab, I have a safe hunch. You answered it perfectly, sir. But I have a safe hunch. I think you are, even now, fitter than most of us here. I'm going to take that safe hunch right now. And with that, I think we'd like to open up this session to Q&A. Any questions? Please feel free to ask.
Yeah, I'm glad there are going to be some questions, because if there are no questions, it means my talk has been useless.
General, please dwell on the title Cartoos. Why Cartoos?
Thank you. You know, in the army, everybody has a nickname. A Randaba is called a Randy. A Sandhu is called a Sandy. Like that. So they couldn't make Cardozo do anything which sounded nice. So they called my Gurkhas. So they called me Cartoos Saab. Now Cartoos means cartridge. So I was known as Cartoos Saab. And that name stuck. So that's why I was called Cartoos Saab. I'd love questions, please. Any question. Don't worry. Ask anything you want.
My name is Daniel Fernandez. I'm a retired banker. Coincidentally, I'm from your neighboring village in Goa. I'm from Kalangut. I have one question. You mentioned Agniveer, Agnipath. Now, the rest of the population, the lay persons also know that this is going to cause considerable damage to the armed forces. Because you can't train a soldier in that time. They are going to recruit them and then demobilize them. And I have read somewhere in the social media, I don't know how accurate it is. It's because of we might recruit less Gurkhas, and now because of that, because of the vacuum left, the Chinese army is recruiting these Gurkhas. Is it true?
That is true. The Gurkha is a very fearsome soldier. He's got a great reputation. And the Chinese want to recruit them. There is a tripartite agreement between Nepal, Britain, and India with regard to the recruitment of Gurkhas. And that does not allow them, a Gurkha, to fight against... The Gurkha is the only Hindu kingdom in the world. Sorry, Nepal is the only Gurkha kingdom in the world. And they are not allowed to fight against a country which has other Gurkhas. So I don't know whether this will happen, but there's every attempt by China to recruit Gurkhas, and I hope it doesn't happen. But you're right. Agnipath, to my mind, is a wrong decision. The politician does what the bureaucrats tell him to do. The bureaucrats, I'm sorry, I've been told not to talk about bureaucracy, not to answer political questions, but this much I can say, that it is a wrong decision. You're very right. In 4 years, you cannot train a soldier. In 4 years, by the time the Chinese president has said that by 2027, he's going to make the Chinese army into the best army in the world. And we are doing the opposite. We need to have time to train our soldiers. The next war is going to be a highly technological war, and you can't train a soldier in 4 years, and by the time you train him, he's going to go. So who's going to fight? What is the caliber of the soldier who's going to fight the next war? You require time, and time is at a premium, and that time is being cut down to 4 years. It is ridiculous. So, what are you all going to do about it? You all need to know more about this question, this issue, and take up cudgels with the government, write articles in the newspapers, question the government on this. The government is doing this for one reason. It wants to save money. By this 4 years business, the soldier will not get a pension. They want to cut the pension. What about them? If you are an MP and you work only for 5 years, you get a pension for life. They look after themselves. And the bureaucrats themselves have increased their pay and allowances and pensions. And because of them, of course, all government servants benefit. But unless you set the example, what is leadership all about? Leadership is setting an example. You want to save money, then cut down your own pension, cut down your own salary, and everything will fall into place. But they're not doing that, and they'll never do that. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah. So I have one more question.
Yeah.
Have you read the Henderson-Brook report? Because it was till about 2011, it was blocked on our website. So when my brother had gone to Australia, he downloaded it there and sent it to me. I have started reading it. Have we learned the lessons of the Henderson-Brooks report?
In some ways, I'm also a Gurkha. When I was in Military Operations Directorate, there were only 2 copies of the Henderson-Brook report. One was with the government, and one was with the army. And that report came to me. And I was told, this is a top secret document, don't read it. And I, like a Gurkha, did not read it. I locked it up in my safe. I followed orders. But as I was saying, sometimes you have to disobey orders. I wish I had read it. But there is enough in the media, in stories, in books. There's no longer any secrecy about the Henderson-Brooks report. And I'd be grateful if you could send me the Henderson-Brooks report, a copy. Yeah. And let me see what I can do.
The gentleman here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, sir. I have a two-part question for you.
Yeah.
The first part is, what made you decide to join the army as a child? What was the driving force behind that? And the second part is, if you had not joined the army, what would you have done?
This is a question that comes to Shah Rukh Khan a lot.
Isn't that?
This is a question that comes to Shah Rukh Khan a lot. It's a great question.
Okay. Why did I join the army? My dad wanted to join the army, but at that time, you could only get a commission in the army if you went to Sandhurst. And for that, you had to have a lot of pull and a lot of money. So he could never join the army. But he was full of the armed forces, and World War II started in 1939, and he kept a scrapbook of all that was happening in in World War II, and he used to share it with me. And opposite my house was a open space called the Gun Carriage Factory. I've written a poem on that also, where units going to Europe, to Burma, to fight World War II used to camp there for a while. And I used to watch them, their parades, their PT, their drills, their sing-song in the evening. And I said, this is a good life. I'd like to join the army, have a tent and a gun of my own. And also, when I was in school and college, particularly my first year in college, I said, do I want to live a life where I go to the same office every day for the rest of my life, seeing the same persons, doing the same job? Or do I want a life of adventure, seeing new places? And then there was a boy from Santa Cruz. His name was Sunith Francis Rodriguez. And he became the chief. When he came back from NDA, he was a changed boy. He was totally in control of himself. He spoke well. He was a boxing blue. And I saw him in his uniform, and I said, that's where I want to go. And so when an ad came in the papers for the NDA, I opted, and I joined, and that is why I joined. Now, recently, a journalist asked me, if you had your life to live all over again, would you join the army? I said, why? He said, because you lost your leg. I said, see, that does not matter. There's no equal to life what the army gives you. Priscilla may not agree with it because she has had faced tough times, because I was always in forward areas. She was mother and father to the boys, and it was difficult for her. But there were times of joy, there were times of sorrow, there were happy times, there were sad times, there were times when we had to part, times of separation. But overall, and they said, you lost your leg. Would you like to get your leg back? I said, that's not possible. And even if I had to get it back, I wouldn't want that to happen, because I am what I am today after I lost my leg 51 years ago. So as a battle casualty, as a person with disability, I found my place in the world. I fought the system. I fought the government. I belonged to a group called the Disability Rights Group. We fought the ministry. We fought the bureaucracy. We started awareness raising. We had seminars and discussions. We brought them to discuss. If that didn't work, we went into the streets of Delhi, fought the system, and we changed the situation for persons who are disabled. We got the Disability Act of 1995, a new act in 2016. There were 7 disabilities then. Today there are 21. We have forced the government to take disabled people into the IAS, into the IFS, into every government job. People who are blind, people who are lame, people who are deaf. We have changed the situation, but the glass is still half empty. There's lots more to do. So the question is that yes, if I was given a chance, I'd join the army all over again because life is incomparable. Have I answered your question? Thank you. Thank you.
Gentleman there in the...
Yeah.
Can we take one last question?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Mike.
Okay.
Do you need a mic?
Hello, sir.
Hi.
How would you recollect your days at Xavier's? And you were an active hockey player. If you had continued hockey, would you have got another Dhyan Chand?
Can you repeat the last piece?
If you had continued playing hockey, would we have got another Dhyan Chand?
Okay, no. I was not that good. My father, I wonder if you heard of the Lusitanians. My father, my uncles, all played for the Lusitanians. And I played for Lusitanians B before I was selected for the St. Xavier's hockey team, A team. As a junior hockey team, I captained the St. Xavier's hockey team and we won the Vegas Cup. Finals were at Don Bosco. And I played hockey for St. Xavier's School later on, for St. Xavier's College. And I got a blue for hockey in the NDA. So hockey is what my father played, my grandfather played, my uncles played. And it's a game that Dhyan Chand brought India into the world spotlight. Do you know why he was called Dhyan Chand? His name was not Dhyan Chand. His name was Dhyan Kumar. But, as I said, he used to practice at night in the moonlight. And the ball used to stick to his hockey stick. The Germans thought that he had a magnet over there. Now, how can you have a magnet for a hockey ball? But they could not understand how. So when he used to practice at night, they changed his name to Dhyan Chand. That's how he changed his name. No, I'm nowhere next to that. I'm just an ordinary hockey player who, okay. That's it. I lived in a place called Colaba, a place quite close to the sea. There was my mum and my dad and my brother, and there was also me.